Welcome everyone. I am Gladys Fichet, Oslo Bureau Chief at Reuters, and I have the pleasure today to talk with Anders Opedal, the Chief Executive of Equinor. Anders Opedal took over as CEO in November, and since then has set out to reshape the Norwegian oil firm for the energy transition. Anders Opedal, welcome.
Thank you very much, Gladys.
Anders, we're talking a few days after Equinor set out a fresh strategy with capital dedicated to renewables and low carbon solutions expected to reach over 50% of total expenditure a decade from now. And at the same time, Equinor will continue producing oil and gas, with production growing for the next few years before plateauing and then declining. So I want to begin by asking you, describe to me what Equinor will look like as a company in 2050.
In 2050? Oh, that's a long question, and I doubt I'm the CEO at that point in time. But you know, the starting point is we have set an ambition of becoming net zero by 2050. It's a very clear strategic direction for us. We think it's a good business strategy because we are in the energy transition now. There will be a need for more renewables. It will be need for more hydrogen and CCS. I think there is no way the society can ever come to net zero without substantial CO2 storage and use of the CCS technology. So, if we do our things right now, this decade, I think we will be a big producer of hydrogen in 2050. We will store a lot of CO2 on behalf of industrial customers in 2050. And we will also have built a substantial renewables business based on offshore wind and most likely a lot of floating offshore wind. We will still produce oil and gas because I think also in 2050 there will be need for oil and gas. But those barrels we are producing at that point in time will be like we are doing now. There will be with low break even. We will produce from the Norwegian continental shelf with no emissions from the production. We'll go near zero emission. And we will also have short payback time on the investments we are doing at that point in time. We will mostly increase oil recovery and probably a few small discoveries around existing facilities we have in 2050. And the number of facilities we have to produce oil and gas in 2050 will be less than today, but we will have Johan Sverdrup, for instance, that will continue producing up to 2070, actually.
So what I'm wondering is, do you think we're going to see a significant decline in oil and gas production, or are we going to see oil and gas production remaining at a steady high level, but with CCS, hydrogen, and renewables balancing it out, cancelling it out? Or do you think it could be something else entirely different? And maybe we don't know what that will look like.
Yeah, I wish I knew, because then my work on the strategy would be very easy. So I think the answer for us now is to develop a strategy that has a lot of optionality into it. The direction is clear. We think that we are moving towards a world where there will be less demand for oil and gas. I don't know when, probably 2030 and beyond. There will be a world that will require more renewables and also at scale CCS and hydrogen. So we have built a strategy where we kind of have all these options available to us, but we can choose when to start these projects. For instance, also oil and gas projects. After 2025, we have a lot of flexibility in our portfolio when to start investing, and combined with very short payback time on the total portfolio, we can grow or continue the oil and gas production according to the demand we are seeing. But the same for renewables. We are building a pipeline of renewable projects, and we are able then to decide Is the market good enough that we can start executing the project now, or should we wait a little bit and make them a little bit better? So this optionality is built into our strategy, but with a clear strategic direction. The energy transition is happening as we speak, and we need to be prepared for it.
And we're seeing a boom in renewable investments, especially from European oil majors, coming in. We're seeing increased competition. We've seen in offshore wind, particularly, it's the demand for those projects is really, really big. So are you concerned that renewable projects may become less profitable as a result?
Well, I also noticed that a lot of governments, they have set now very high ambitions for offshore wind. But the areas they're putting out for leases are still limited. So I expect that over time we will see more and more of those leases coming out, and then we will be ready to take them. So actually now there's probably more competitors than there are leases available, and we know that can drive the prices up. Then it's about being selective, being patient. We have time. We have already a very strong pipeline of projects. Our focus now is actually to execute on, together with SSE on the Dogger Bank, the Empire Wind, together with BP, and with Polenergia in Poland to execute on the Baltic project. At the same time, we are capturing new possibilities in some other emerging countries. So I think this is an exciting time. I think we will see a lot of new competitors, but also in the longer run, we will see much more leases being available. We just have to, because if governments should kind of fulfill their ambitions, there needs to be more of those.
So which areas of the world would you like to see more areas made available to companies?
Well, we have a few areas now available in Norway, and we will take those opportunities to apply for those leases. And but also in Norway, we need to see more coming up if we want to grow that business in Norway, and the government indicated that. I think in Europe and also US and also in the Far East, Japan, South Korea, it would be good to have even more leases coming up. But I know they are working on it, and they will be made available over time. And then we are ready to compete. We think already we have a leading position, particularly in floating offshore wind, where we already had done a pilot in 2009. We have scaled up and piloted a wind park in Scotland. And then we are now scaling up even further on a wind park in Norway, floating wind park in Norway, that will give the electricity to the offshore platform. So now we are ready for the big wind farms for floating wind.
And so is it the key is to get in early, get access to the acreage, develop the projects, and then develop it and maybe sell a stake like you've been doing in the past? Is that the way to profitability on those projects?
Well, that's one way to it, and we have done that very successfully with, if you see we have done that from Sheringham Shoal, Dudgeon, Arkona, Empire, Dogger Bank. So that is a part of our operating model and business model within renewables. But at the same time, we do have a strong balance sheet. We have a lot of cash coming in from our oil and gas business. So we have the possibility to also invest more in renewables and have less strategic farm downs and capture more of the upsides ourselves as well. So we can balance this both between strategic farm downs, project financing, and partnering and so on. So this will be something that we will look into project to project.
Mm-hmm. But if there are no more area, if there's if there isn't enough acreage made available to companies, do investors need to be ready to accept perhaps a lower level of dividend payments from European oil majors as they negotiate the energy transition? given the incredible transformation that these companies are doing?
Well, I definitely don't think we will provide lower returns than we have indicated, because that is what we expect to deliver, and that I think is what the investors should expect from us. We have indicated that the nominal return on equity on the offshore developments, the wind farms we have in development in UK and US, they will have a return between 12 and 16%. So that is what we are guiding on, and that is based on the projects we have in under development now.
So if we turn to CCS, the Norway and Equinor tried to do carbon capture storage a decade ago, and it didn't work out. So, and now you're trying again. So what's different this time that you think it will work this time around?
Yeah, so let me walk you through a little bit of the history for CCS for Equinor, because we started actually 25 years ago with capturing the CO2 from the well stream on the Sleipner field, and then store it safely in the subsurface there. So we, together with the Snøhvit field up in the north, we have stored more than 25 million tons. So on the Mongstad, we did first develop a test pilot for carbon capture. That was first more a catch and release facility. So that was just to learn the technology and scale up the technology. Then we also were looking into do it at scale for the whole refinery. That became a little bit complex and too expensive, so we stopped that project. What we are focusing on now is, together with the Norwegian government, to make a totality where some companies are capturing the CO2, and our part of that business is to pick it up by a boat and transport it to a site on the western part of Norway, and then pump it through a pipeline safely to store it. So here, this time, we are more in the transport and storage part of the value chain. And then there are all the companies that are focusing on capturing the CO2 in their own business. So we are a little bit changing the where we are in the value chain. So we already started the construction and made the first contract from the first company to deliver CO2 to us. And there is enormous a lot of interest. We have more than 50-60 countries that really looking into how they can then capture and then use the Northern Light project, the JV between us, Total, and Shell to store the CO2 safely.
So is it that you understand now better that, okay, what we can make a difference is the transport and the storage rather than the capturing?
Well, we don't own the technology for capturing. We could have capture our own emissions maybe, but I think others at the moment will capture. Our competitive advantage is really that we know the Norwegian continental shelf very well. We know where we can safely store CO2. We have saline aquifers available on the Norwegian continental shelf. We have empty reservoirs that we know have a very good sealing where we can store this safely. So this knowledge about the subsurface is really kind of our key advantage here. And what kind of competence do you need to do this storage projects for CO2? Well, you need a geologist, a geophysicist, a petrophysicist, a well engineer, a drilling engineer, pipeline engineer, and operators. And we already got those people in our organization. So this is where we have are better suited in that part of the business. But that does not rule out that we will look into also the front end of that value chain, which is the capturing. But at the moment, we're focusing on transport and storage.
And how much can you store in the North Sea? I mean,
that is more than, if I remember correctly, it's more than 200 gigatons. So it's, I think it's like 50 times the emission from EU. at today's level. So it is actually huge. It's particularly the Norwegian continental shelf and the UK continental shelf that has the have the biggest potential for storage. And the good thing is also that the governments on both sides of the North Sea are very in favor of CCS and the storage, and both governments they have enabled and supported this in the UK in the Humber area, and with when one of the storage there, which is led by BP, and the Northern Lights in Norway, which is a joint venture between Equinor, Shell, and Total. So this is I don't think the limit is not the storage. Now the limit is really kind of to have a business model in place. It's still less expensive to emit emission than capture and store it. But over time, I think this will change because, as I said, we will never reach net zero unless we put this technology at scale. And when we do that at scale, we need a little bit support again from regulators to push this carbon tax a little bit higher up. And then we are ready to help industries that cannot decarbonize with renewables, for instance.
So what kind of level of carbon tax do you need to make this kind of profitable, interesting?
Well, we see that over time and scaling up, and so with just the transportation and storage, we can come down to 30 to 50 euros per ton, and then you have the capturing cost in addition to that. When you start talking about carbon prices above 100 and so on, this start to be different. So, but we are seeing the ETS is going up. I think it peaked at 57 or something like that some time ago. So it's definitely we are on the right direction here.
So could we come to a time when the North Sea is where instead of taking oil out, we put the emissions back in?
We see the particularly the Norwegian continental shelf. It used to be kind of a oil and gas province, but it also has the potential for being an energy province where we can still produce oil and gas, but less over time, where we can do offshore wind. Some of it can be used to our platform, so we produce the oil and gas without emissions. And then we can also do hydrogen from the gas from the Norwegian continental shelf and sell it as hydrogen or ammonia or those type of products. And then also do the CCS or CO2 storage. So I think the kind of the last industrial places and so on does not stop with oil and gas. There will still be a lot of activity on the Norwegian continental shelf for many decades, but it will be a much broader kind of work being done there. Oil and gas, renewables, and also hydrogen and CCS. So this is a story that will develop over time. So very exciting, actually.
I mean, other oil companies, like for instance, Ørsted of Denmark, have decided to completely abandon oil and gas production, and they went all into renewables. Why not Equinor?
Well, our history is that we started as an oil and gas company to really develop the oil and gas resources in the Norwegian continental shelf on behalf of the Norwegian society. And that duty is still kind of strong within Equinor. We feel that we are a company that should be also the one that are developing the oil and gas resources on the Norwegian continental shelf. Do it in a sustainable manner. Always have a focus on how to produce best oil and gas in terms of emissions, but also working very close with all others that are using the ocean on the Norwegian continental shelf. And we are producing quite a lot, and on behalf of the Norwegian state and also ourselves. So it kind of stopping producing oil and gas, that is not the question, but it's how we are producing and how we are doing the investments, and how we also kind of using some of the income from the oil and gas business to provide new type of technology in renewables, CCS and hydrogen that will benefit both the investors in Equinor and the societies where we operate, and also particularly in Norway, UK, and elsewhere. So that is a little bit our thinking here.
And recently, we've seen developments in the industry that have been quite surprising, I guess, or perhaps we had some interesting decisions. For instance, we had the court ruling in the Netherlands forcing Shell to cut its CO2 emissions by 45% by 2030. And I was wondering, what was your reaction when you heard that kind of news coming like that? Was that a surprise, or were you, was this decision a surprise for you?
Well, I don't know if I was surprised, but I think it reflects the rapid change in the society and how we think about energy. Maybe we are, the sentiment is moving faster than the realities. That is something that we need to reflect on, because the energy system is huge. And I know that many would like to see less oil and gas being in the energy mix, but it will take time to actually that for happen. And if we kind of take down the supply faster than we take down the demand, that will create an imbalance in the energy system, and I don't think that will benefit anything, and particularly not economic growth. So what we need to focus on is really see how can the demand be reduced, and that can be reduced by increasing the supply of renewables and other sources of energy like clean hydrogen that can be used, and that will over time take down the demand for oil and gas. So I think we need to start in the right end. That will require change in industries, it will require change in governments, and it will also require change for consumers and the way we use energy. So here is really important that we work together and not kind of work against each other. I think, because I think we all have the shared goal of reaching net zero. And we need to kind of find a way to come there together.
Are you concerned that as European oil majors are adapting to the energy transition, there's a danger for countries to become more dependent on oil and gas from OPEC and Russia than they are today? Well,
that can happen, and it's up to the different governments to make that decision if they want to be more dependent on. But energy security has always been important for decades, and I think it will be equally important also in the future. So we, from Equinor point of our view, is that we will try to provide energy for people. We will provide different types of energy, but the oil and gas that we will provide, we will try to produce with at low cost as possible, so it will be competitive also at lower oil prices. Very short payback time, so it's robust towards the energy transition, and then also with very low emissions, so it also robust towards increasing carbon prices. And then it should be competitive with oil from other parts of the world, and hope that that can provide a flexibility for governments to where they procure oil from.
On the day we're talking, the price of Brent crude is approaching $75 a barrel, and if oil would to go back to the level of $100 per barrel, what would that And if it does that, what will it do for the energy transition? Will it take a back seat, do you think?
At least, I think if we come to that prices, we will also see much more supply coming in. So eventually, and where it will balance, it's so difficult to say. I kind of just more than a year ago, the most frequent question was about, will oil ever reach back to $60-70? And today, just a year after, the most frequent question is, what will happen, when oil goes to $100? So I think that reflects a little bit of the volatility in this market. So I think we just need to expect that also going forward, and particularly when we are looked at that into our strategy, is all about being kind of robust towards lower prices, capturing the kind of with the high prices when they are available, of course, and because I think we will see volatility going forward as well. What it will do for the energy transition, I think those countries that are dependent on oil, that really looking for investing more in renewables, that will have to spend all their money on oil for a while longer, and maybe slow down a little bit the energy transition, particularly in some parts of the world. Other parts of the world would say, okay, we are done paying $100 per barrel, so now we really need to accelerate the growth in renewables. So maybe we'll see a very different patterns around the world. But anyway, the long-term trend, I think, is still that the demand for oil and gas eventually will go down, and we will see a easing up.
Has the pandemic played a part in the way you think about the energy transition?
Well, yes. At least I think the sentiment around the energy transition, people seem. I think all see the urgency. Everyone felt the urgency a little bit more after the COVID-19 pandemic, and we see also all this, building back is very much focused on the energy transition, the renewables, and so on. So I think we see a much stronger push towards the energy transition, and just see how many companies and governments that have announced net zero ambitions during the pandemic. Would it have happened, if we had, from March 2020 just stayed on $70 and nothing happened? I think it actually have accelerated a lot of the ambition. Have it accelerated the actions? I'm not sure. That is something that we need to work with, and so that's our strategy now, is to we have enough ambitions. Now it's actions. All our ambitions needs to be backed by actions, and that's what we are doing, investing in renewables and investing in low carbon solutions.
So we have a couple of minutes left, and I just wanted to ask you to finish our talk a few more personal questions. So I understand you're a big fan of alpine skiing. So I was wondering, who's your favorite all-time alpine skier?
That's an easy one. That is the Swedish. It's a strange for a Norwegian to say Swedish, but it's a Swedish skier, Ingmar Stenmark. He was just outstanding alpine skier. I think he had more than 70 World Cup victories. Nobody was able to do that after him, and he only participated in 2 disciplines. And now they have 4 or 5 disciplines they're competing in. So he was an outstanding skier. I had the poster of him in my bedroom.
And so, and what are the books or the series or the movies that got you through this pandemic?
Yeah, no, that's I have to tell you, there is a series, nobody knows it because it's a Norwegian series. It's about a couple of carpenters that are going to old cabins in Norway, and they redecorate them and make all these fancy solutions there, where they're kind of upgrading the cabins. So my wife and myself, we spent spent the evenings during the pandemic to watch that. So I was so enthusiastic about all the fancy solutions they found to the old cabins. So that's what I spent my time on in the evenings.
Sounds like a good engineer way of looking at a downtime way of doing things.
Actually, it was.
And what's the single most important thing you've learned over the past year that you will take with you in the month ahead?
Well, it's the resilience of an organization that one day, meet in the office and the next day sit in home office and just continue working. You get so humble. I still remember the kind of what we were thinking in March, April, when we thought, oh, it's working. We're actually able to do it, and the kind of how humble you get when you realize how much effort people put in to actually make it work. Then that is something that impacted me quite a lot.
Anders Opedal, thank you very, very much for you speaking with us on the range of issues today. We really appreciate it, and good luck with the next few months.
Thank you very much, Gladys.